All righty, we're back. Today, we're talking about transformation over transaction, redefining financial empowerment for families. Today, our guest is Jacqui Matsumoto. She helps individuals and families take control of their finances through education and not sales pressure. Okay, so thank you for joining us today. And remember to share this out to your friends and family and other entrepreneurs who you believe can use this information that we have today. And we, let me introduce us. We are Nate and Simone. We talk all things marketing. And let's jump in. Hi, Jacqui. Hi, Nate.
Hello. Hello.
Hi,
Yeah,
Simone. Hi,
excuse me.
Nate.
Hi. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah,
So,
thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate that.
Oh,
oh no, thank
welcome.
you. The honor's all ours, I'm sure.
Oh,
So most people think that they need a product in their life, maybe. But maybe what they really need is a plan, right? And someone willing to tell them the truth. And I think that's what Jacqui represents here for the people searching for ways to increase their personal wealth and start living the life that they want to live, right? So,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, too many people are unprepared for many of life's inevitable disruptions. And I think Jackie's story highlights the difference between, transactions and real transformation. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. As always, we talk about three things a lot in our conversations here. We talk about visibility, and the viability and value. And this particular episode, I think, touches on all three of those. Visibility through mission-driven messaging,
Mhm.
viability through alignment with purpose, and creating value through meaningful client relationships to create that long-term value, right? All right, so let's get into this. Jacqui, I don't know how prepared you are to talk about your personal story, but I think it's integral to kind of where you're at now. So I'm just going to give a brief, from what I understand. Jacqui experienced a turning point in her life where she lost her husband and realized that they were financially unprepared.
Yeah.
And that experience, as I understand it from talking to Jacqui, led to her personal and professional mission that she's on now. And she is currently helping families figure out, why, or why most of them are unaware of financial tools available to them. So, Jacqui, can you take us back to that moment where everything changed for you?
Sure, Nate. By the way, I love your three V's and how they
Okay.
tie into what I do. I was listening to that. That's wonderful. Um, but gosh, years ago, what happened is to kind of go back a little further, I have a good friend of mine that is actually a Charles Schwab broker. Okay. I didn't work in this industry, and he worked with, the wealthy people, the doctors, the lawyers, veterinarians, you name it. And none of them had any debt. And he said to me one day, he goes, Jacqui, you and Michael, I really think that, you're not really my client type, but you should get some life insurance, or something like that. And I says, And at that time, I worked a regular job, a corporate job, and my husband had his own business. He developed a salve that actually took pain out of the body. Anyway, and so when you're growing your business, you go through all the trials and tribulations and such. And we were spending a lot of money marketing his business. And I thought at that time, I says, I don't think we can afford to get life insurance. But not only that, he was so much healthier than I was. That man was at the gym all the time, dragged me up the mountains when we went for hikes and everything. And I was just like, I don't think he's going to die before me. I'm going to die before he is, you know? And so, Nate, lo and behold, who would have ever thought that
Wow.
he would have had, you know, some kind of cancer that was going on with him that we
Mm.
didn't know until it was too late. And so
Wow.
I thought, oh my goodness, you know, and
Mm.
it's just, I cannot tell you, you do everything in your power to save a loved one.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I didn't think it was
No,
going
no, it's
It's
fine.
perfectly
I
okay.
understand. I totally get
Yeah.
it. Um, so
but anyway, yeah. So, and so what happened then was that um, you know, you charge up your credit cards because if the regular medical doctors can't cure what you have, then you go holistic, right? But is your medical insurance going to pay for herbs, different types of treatments, and things like that? No, they're not going to do that. And so you take all your savings, you charge up your credit cards, you do anything to save a life, right? And so that's what we did. Borrowed money, you name it, everything we could throw at it to try and turn things around. But that's when that didn't work either. And unfortunately, he passed. And so, but that's, you know, because I didn't wasn't aware of how money worked, how things, you know, what happens when somebody passes that's near to you and dear to you, and all the things that happen afterwards. Um, it was a nightmare. It was a
mm,
financial nightmare. And I can't imagine what families must go through if they don't have the right protection in place and coverage in place, because then you have to worry about how are you going to cover final expenses, and then that person's bringing in a certain amount of income. How are you going to fill that gap? You know, what besides losing a loved one, then you have these financial gaps, you know, the bills, the medical bills, everything just come upon you. And it's now I understand why a lot of people actually file bankruptcy after medical expenses and emergencies happen to them, because
yeah,
you'll do everything you can, you know, to save a loved one. So that's how I got
yeah.
into this business.
I think that's an unfortunate tale that many people find themselves, in the middle of these days in America, especially. It's kind of
Yeah.
we're kind of notorious for having a poor medical system, and a lot of people in debt because of that, unfortunately. Um,
Yes.
so, going along with this, then, what was it that you discovered that made you say, more people need to know about this? Well, was there something? I'm assuming there was something.
Yeah, there was something. Actually, another friend of mine came over with somebody else that was helping her to understand basic financial principles. And so they went over what my shortfalls were, what my strategy should be, you know, now that I was on my own. And by the way, just so all the women out there who are listening, we normally outlive our husbands. So it's really important. And I saw that a lot of women rely on their husbands for the financial aspects of their household. So it's another reason that women really need to understand and take control of their finances as well. In addition, you know, working with their husbands. So, but after they came by my home and showed me different things and educated me, I realized, and she says, you know, we're expanding. So I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity to help share my story with others so that they don't have to go through the hardships that I did.
One of the things that you talk about is financial
Uh-huh.
literacy, Jackie. So do you feel, and why do you feel that a lot of people are stuck when it comes to financial literacy?
Well, number one, there are only about 5 states in the United States that actually have financial education in schools. I really think it should be taught in middle school, even maybe younger, you know. And so we have met with people from universities, and I hate to name it, like Pepperdine professors and such, who knew none of the financial principles that we knew, you see. And so it's so important that people understand from a young age how to actually manage their money, save their money, where to save their money. I don't know about you, but my parents used to tell me, go to school, get a good job, and save your money for a rainy day. And I says, Mom, where do I save my money for a rainy day? And all she knew was a bank, But I don't know if you've ever put your money in a bank in a savings account and then get your statement and see how few pennies you get for the money that you have in there.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Point zero three
it's
five percent or something
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
yeah,
it's terrible.
it is terrible, yeah. But if you knew where you could put your money, because let me tell you, the bank doesn't put their money in their savings account. You know what I mean? Earning 1 or 2% or not even that, right? And so they're professional money managers. And so they certainly know how to make money on your money and then loan it back on you so that you're
Yeah, at high
contributing.
interest rates.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, And so we teach these principles so that people understand about compound interest and how that really works. And so also Simone is just like when you take these certain rules and also apply it to your debt, I mean, I'm sure you realize there are some people who are just constantly in debt and never seem to get out of it because they don't understand these rules.
That's true. That's true. Especially consumer debt is,
Yes. Oh my
just
gosh.
horrible. Imagine, buying a pair of skates with a credit card and then paying for
Right.
those skates for years and years and years. It's like, because of the system and the way it's structured and how it's designed for you to pay for the interest rather than for the principal.
Hmm.
um, and it's pure profit for the banks and the financial institutions, whereas you as the consumer, you just fall further and further behind.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. It's
Okay,
Yeah.
unfortunate.
so
Yeah.
I think going back to the tying it back into the V3 here, viability and visibility here, purpose, it can becomes your fuel in this case, right? And this is one of the
Hmm.
things we talk about a lot. We start off with talking about goals, financial goals especially. That's one of the key drivers, I think, for any business owner who's out there. The whole reason people get into business is because they want some kind of financial freedom further down the road. Somewhere in the back of their mind, that's what they're thinking, right?
Right.
And when your purpose and your goals are aligned, you're creating trust, clarity, there's consistency in your messaging and how you show up and serve your clientele. So I think all this really ties in. Okay, so let's keep going here. Um, let's talk about why financial conversations feel so broken. Um, there's a difference here between selling solutions versus solving problems, I think, is one of the things to touch on.
Hmm.
Why traditional financial services often fail to empower the people that they're supposed to be serving, right? And then
Hmm.
also, building trust before transactions and listening before pitching. I think those are all beautiful concepts I would love to talk about as far as like sales goes. So what's wrong with the way most financial professionals approach their clients, Jackie?
Oh my goodness. Where should I start? I- anyway, don't get me wrong. A lot of them have a good heart. A lot of these people have a good heart. They know what they're talking about. But I think for the most part, they focus on products, not on the people, right? They're trained to lead with, they have quotas and different things like that. So it's what can I get assets under management, Rarely do they ever sell insurance policies or annuities. And so, but they don't really start with people and finding out what are their real goals, what are their fears, what are their lifestyle needs, And so I think they feel like they're being sold to instead of being advised. And that also leads to, you know, not being proactive for a family that you're working with. So, and then normally the traditional financial industry, they work with people who are the wealthy, right? Have you heard of the one percenters? Well, that's who they focus on, the big whales, right? That's what we kind of call them like that. But but we like to help families, to plan early to avoid financial stress later. We don't emphasize on accumulation, not only that, but really protection. Because yes, it's true, you do have to grow your money, you know. But what happens if you get sick, like my husband, you lose your income, or you live too long? Oh my gosh, Nate and Simone, I was just reading on Business Insider how they were talking about people who were like over their 80s still working because
Mm,
they had
yeah,
to. That's tragic, isn't it?
yeah,
Can you
It
imagine
is tragic. That's
your grandmother, your grandfather still having to work because they have to,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
feel like at that point, like if you're at that age and you want to work, okay, great. But if you're doing it because you have to, that's tragic.
Yes, yes, absolutely. But you see, those people were left behind in the industry, right? Because they were workers, and they weren't the wealthy, obviously, and nobody really sat down, took them to the side, and say, "Hey, I'm going to teach you how to really protect yourself, so you never have to worry about money once you retire. If you want to work, great, that's your option, but not because you have to." And I read how one woman that was 84 years old, and the reason she didn't have money in her retirement was because she funded her kids' education, her grandkids, her kids' education. So there went her money. And you know how expensive education is now, right?
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. And so here she is, partly disabled, still working. Anyway, it just broke my heart.
yeah. That is, yeesh, unbelievable. Um, I think I saw a statistic here recently that said, in the last, what is it? I'm not sure the time span. I think it's the last 100 or so years. The number of billionaires in the United States has grown from like, 5 to over 900 now. So that's interesting. But so needless to say, there's a lot of people getting left behind there.
Yeah.
Real world wages haven't kept in line with that type of exponential growth, unfortunately. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so one of the things I learned in my previous life, working corporate job in sales, was that sales is just like education, right? And so that's actually partly how I got that job, is because of my experience as a teacher, believe it or not. And so how do you lead with education, Jackie, instead of pressuring people in your case? Is this something
Um,
you're consciously thinking of, or?
no, no, it's actually part of our philosophy here at Wealth Builders, It's the new art of living. It's really education is so key. And that's where we start, you know. It's all about giving. It's empowering them, giving them the information so that they can make a decision themselves. And so it's really it's like second nature, I guess you could say. So I don't really even think about it because I realize that even some people who have a lot of money, they don't understand these principles themselves because, the financial industry talks in a technical jargon that most people don't even understand. But we want to make sure that Nate and Simone, if we educate you on these principles, then please educate your friends, educate, your grandkids, your kids. We want you to be the change maker in your family so that your financial futures will be changed for generations to come. So
Hmm.
that's the way we look at
What
it.
So what is this change that you're speaking of, this transformation? What does that look like for a client who finally is able to get that clarity?
Well, it's not that most people aren't intelligent. They, like you said, they lack clarity, right? And then when they finally get it, then everything changes. Because when we speak with a lot of people, they feel overwhelmed. They don't know who to trust, right? Or they're afraid of making the wrong move. And, and Nina and Simone, you've got to agree. There's so much information out there, you know?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't know about you, but I would spin if I didn't know what I knew. And like, well, who's really talking the truth, and which direction do I go, and what do I do? But once you actually have some real clarity and make a decision as to what you want for your life and your family, it really creates a calmness and confidence so that you can take control. You're not reactive by fear, right? I don't know if you've ever experienced that or seen that in other people that you work with. Have you?
Um, well, reacting based on fear, you mean?
Yeah, they're so
Yeah.
unsure as to what to do.
Well, I see a lot of uncertainty for among business owners when it comes, especially when it comes to marketing and their systems and processes and their sales. That's
Yeah.
actually pretty common. Because business owner, they go into business to do the thing that they know how to do best, but they one of the things they don't tell you is that there's a whole lot of other things that go along with it that you have to be a master of as well, right? Surprise, you don't
Mhm.
really find that out until you're in the middle of it. And
Right.
so I see a lot of that actually, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and that's
So,
actually one of the things I work with is trying to help provide clarity around what to do with your strategy in your business that's going to help move things forward and increase that revenue. So yeah.
that's great because once they understand, your principles, how you strategize for them, then they can stop guessing and then they can start acting with
Yeah,
purpose, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having that
Yeah.
clarity is a game changer,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and having that strategy and a path, you have a path forward. Now okay, um, I know which direction I'm going and I know how to get to where it is I want to be. I've got a path that's been
Mhm.
illuminated for me. Um, so absolutely. And every family needs that as well.
and
Yes, absolutely. Because we figured that they have clarity, they know what they want to do. We can help map it out, like you said. They have a sense of control, right? And our guidance isn't about telling people what to do. It's about helping them to see what's possible, you know, that they
yeah,
can achieve their goals, their financial dreams, traveling the world, buying 10 rental properties, you name it, whatever it is that they want to do, it is possible, but they need to start, right? If you don't start walking that path, that the roadmap that you've laid out, how are they going to get there?
yeah. So
Absolutely.
to our viewers out there who are wanting to implement this in their own lives, of course, important thing to remember here is that your message and the method need to match. I think is a key here, especially when it comes to, like, for example, sales, educating instead of pressuring, and that making sure that you
Hmm.
have that message nailed down so that it's moving things along in the right direction. When you have your story and your service aligned, then that helps you build that visibility with the right people. So that's a key, I think. Okay, let's get into the money conversation. So, what do most people misunderstand about wealth, Jackie? The word wealth or wealth in general, yeah.
Hmm. Well, you know what? I think when people all have different concepts of what it means to actually be wealthy. Whether it's money in the bank, luxury cars, your dream home. things like that. Sometimes you're chasing numbers or status symbols, but we don't think that you have to work yourself into exhaustion trying to get ahead. So when I talk to people and I look at them and I think, well, what is true wealth? Isn't it really having the freedom to make choices, with your time, your health, your relationships? Um, as part of empowering families in the new art of living, we believe self-development is a really important part of having happiness and having wealth, right? So you feel secured that your loved ones are protected no matter what happens. And then, you use your resources to live meaningfully, whether you're actually giving to charities, giving back in some way. I think creating an impact for others makes other people happy. And then it's all about building, having a peace of mind and not just a portfolio. I don't know about you, but I've known other people who have lots of money and time, but they're not happy. So you have to make sure that I think to be wealthy and happy, your money has to align with your values, not the other way around. So I don't think it's just about how much you earn. It's about how you live and how you give and how you grow.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes so much sense.
somewhere in there, I'm sure is the idea of, financial freedom, and what that
Right.
means. How do you help your clients define that or
Oh, yes, yes, for sure. We call it a FIN number, means your financial independence number. All right. In fact, I want to tell you, and I was meeting with another gal, and she said that she actually had a financial advisor and she had money and assets under management, et cetera. And so I says, well, has she told you what your FIN number is? And she goes, what is that? So you see how that's transactional, it's not educational. So she didn't even have a goal or target in mind as to how much money did she actually need to accumulate so that she didn't have to keep on working until her 80s, right? And so I says, well, we actually do that for people. We tell them what their FIN number is so that they have a goal of what they can go for. And so, but a FIN number is really the amount of money you need to accumulate so that how you invest that money, that interest or dividend that's paid to you will pay for your budget, your mortgage, your cars, your utilities, your food, everything. So that way you have a peace of mind. You don't have to worry about your living expenses. That's where we start
mm,
with people with regards to financial independence and freedom.
mm,
And then you
mm.
can work from there.
So how does that turn into, real life decision making then?
Oh, well, because once you actually understand what that number is, and then you have to really understand how much money do I need to save or accumulate to get to that point? How much time do you have in your time horizon to make it there? And, what are the risk factors involved? Because when you're in your 50s or 60s, and then you're thinking about whether I saved enough money to be financially free, you don't have that much time to actually have amass money, right? And then you have to take more risk, but then with risk, then you might lose money, especially if it's in the market. How long does the market going to stay up? Is it going to reset? Is it going to go back down? Are you going to lose your money? I mean, do you remember when that happened in 2008 when all those
Yeah.
people who had millions of dollars in their 401k and then it became a 201k? That was a disaster, a real disaster because people didn't actually plan, and they just had all their money in one basket. Well, you have to think about that, especially when it comes to a 401k, because do you want to pay taxes on the seed or the harvest? What would you want to do? Are you going to know what taxes are going to be 30 years down the road? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I look at
That's a
that
good
and
point.
I like to explain that to people, especially with the debt in America, et cetera. Do you think
Yeah.
taxes are going to be higher or lower in the future? What do you think?
Uh-huh. Yeah. This
That's
is
so
uh
true.
this is the this is the $50 trillion question, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay. So tying it in here with the V3 value. So real value, it's not just financial to our viewers out there. It's the impact that you leave and the clarity that you give to your clients to allow them to live more freely. So hopefully you're in it for more than just the money, in other words, right? All
Right.
right.
Yes.
So um, let's keep rolling here. Okay. So now, let's talk about building a mission-driven practice. So, what's one thing you wish every entrepreneur would understand about building a business with purpose, Jacqui?
Hmm. Well, you know, obviously for me, when I started in this industry, I saw how, my family was one of those people that was left behind, right? And so nobody helped my parents understand real financial literacy, right? And so I didn't know how to save money. I knew how to make money. And I was hoping that I could get a money tree. My parents like, money doesn't grow in trees. I says, I thought you said that money, that tree out there was a money tree. And I'm like, where's the money?
Technically,
I
it
was born.
is.
My
Yeah.
mother used to say the
Anyway,
same thing all the time.
did
Money
they?
doesn't grow on
Oh my
trees.
gosh, I
Burned into my
know.
brain.
Yeah.
Anyway, but oh my goodness. And so when I realized, when my husband passed away, I was one of those families left behind too. I could have had some kind of policy in place, with living benefits and such. So he could have had a bucket list in the short time that he had instead of worrying about how the expenses were going to be paid or how he was going to be taken care of and different things like that. So I think, that's why it's really in me to help people to give back to everybody so they don't have to go through what I went through. And, I remember once, Nate and Simone, I went to um, I think it was a florist. And it just so happened I was talking with her and her son was there and we were talking about things and she asked me what I did. And, we were talking about her business. And she said, my husband just passed away. Oh my gosh, my heart just sank. And so she said, you know what? I don't even know how we're going to survive. I don't know how I'm going to keep the business. I don't know whether we're going to keep our home, because obviously that meant she didn't have the right protection, the right life insurance, the right financial instruments in place so that they would be set. Because what do you do when you lose a loved one and they're the breadwinner? I mean, there's just too many stories of things like that going on when it really doesn't have to. And so that's why it's like my mission, my crusade to get out there and help educate as many people as possible.
hmm So, what would you say, in your mind, what does success look like for you today?
Oh my gosh, it's just helping as many people as possible,
Yeah.
and people who are actually going to avail themselves of the right strategies. So when I actually work with somebody and I see the light bulb come on and they're like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. Oh, that could be done, or this is the way to actually grow your money and not lose your money in the market and different things like that. And really, the fog just clears for them. And so I think that that really touches my heart. And then I know, yes, we make a lot of money. It's, the financial services industry makes the most millionaires, investment bankers, people like that, because you're dealing with people's money. But you know what, Nate? When we sit down and help people, educate them, we don't even charge them because we want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to learn this information. And so they can change the lives for themselves and their family.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So if someone, let's say that they're feeling lost or ashamed about their finances for some reason, maybe they don't have enough, they can, barely afford to clothe themselves, let alone feed themselves. What,
Uh-huh.
how does someone like that get started?
Um, you know what? Because we work with over 148 product providers, they can just start with as little as they have, and plus they get the opportunity to work with us. We need so many people to learn our business, our system of how you can have a financial services distribution agency. Okay. And so they need to obviously to make more money. They need to increase their cash flow. So it's either take another job, right? Or they could start a business. And why not? I mean, look at all the thousands of people who are being laid off now. Did you hear about that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I think was
Yeah.
it
Absolutely.
Amazon laid off 18,000 blue collar workers, or is it white collar workers in the office?
White collar workers. Yeah. Because they claim AI
Scary.
is replacing them, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I think the official line on that one was it had to do with culture, is what they said. So
Oh,
Yeah, they're changing their culture to a culture of AI is what they're doing.
yeah,
Uh,
oh, I
but
see.
it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting because the next headline out was Amazon strikes a deal with OpenAI. So yeah, like
my
yeah,
goodness. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Anyway,
I heard of companies that are they've they've told their managers to freeze hiring unless they can prove that the person that they're hiring, that position can't be done and that work can't be done by AI.
wow.
Mm,
So, a lot of companies are going all in on AI
Hmm.
and eliminating workers. So so humans have to learn how to make money work for them and make the technology and the resources and stuff work for them because these companies out here aren't looking they're not looking to benefit the people. They're looking to keep their bottom line nice and fat. So
Hmm.
right.
you know
Right.
a lot of
Yeah.
times that means fewer workers.
I think one
Right.
of the main thrusts of publicly traded companies, right, has always been to automate, right? So that's not a surprise. It's just
Yeah.
the
Absolutely.
white collar workers didn't imagine it would happen to them. I think that's part of the
Right,
problem.
right.
But
They
anyway,
assumed that their jobs wouldn't be taken over by machines, and then we ended up creating a machine
yeah,
that can
um,
replace a white collar worker.
I
yeah.
know. I know.
All right, so building that mission-driven practice. So a business built on outcomes instead of hype is scalable and impactful, and it attracts people who stay if you're hiring,
Right.
especially. All
Hmm.
right,
Hmm.
so let's get into a recap, and we'll get out of here. So financial information starts with education and empathy, realizing where someone's coming from, really truly understanding their goals, what they're trying to achieve, and then educating them about their options. Right. I think that's
Right.
a key that something that Jacqui service that Jacqui provides. Um, Having a purpose-led business that doesn't chase clients necessarily, they attract the right ones instead. I think that's key.
Right.
And then if yeah, and selling generally, like the big bad word selling, becomes irrelevant if the service comes first, right? If you are truly out there to help serve your clients, selling is kind of an afterthought because you know people understand the value you provide and they want to do business with you. So, all right, Simone, back to you.
So Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much, Jacqui, for your insights and your and for sharing with us what you do and your story. We so appreciate it. And if you learned something today, please put your biggest takeaways in the comments. Let us know, and be sure to subscribe to this channel and share this with others who need to know, because we want to make sure that that this information goes out far and wide, and that we are helping businesses to grow and families to be sustained, you know, through business,
Yeah.
through financial literacy, and wealth building, wealth growth. All right.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Look in the links for link for Jacqui to connect with Jacqui. So yeah,
Yes. If you want to contact Jacqui, we'll put her link in the
in the
description.
description.
All right.
Okay.